a moment or two about what your group is most curious about, if you were to kind of boil it down to one or two things in regard to debriefing or the interactive LCP with debriefing. Was there one or two things that you could put in a chat that you really want to learn about? I know that our group had something. Let's see if we can see some of the main ideas. Yep. Where is the LCP? Debriefing with the new guide. Yep. Learn the interactive. Yep. We don't know what or where it is. Excellent. Okay, this is helping me a lot. Curious to learn how we address the debrief as coaches. Yep. Working with resistance and clients to even have a debrief. That's not a theme, but an interesting question. Functionality. Yep. Getting a sample report, lots of questions around that. Yep. Okay, Crystal will capture all of these as well. And we will, if we don't address every single thing in this session, we will follow up with some responses to some of these questions and themes and other ways to get at it. This is great. Thank you so much. I love this community so much. I love our purpose as a company. I love our work in leadership in the world. I am such a strong advocate and believer that the world needs rare leadership so badly. And rare leadership is extraordinary leadership or high creative leadership. It is truly the only way out of the mess that we are in as a world. And it's so important, this work that we do to help shift the operating system to a different way of thinking and seeing that is far more integral and unitive, so that we can have collective breakthroughs in very complex problems. So thank you for the work that you do. I want to start, I think, with the new debrief sheet. So I'm going to share that so that we can be looking at the debrief steps together. I'll walk through those and point some differences. And then we'll walk through the interactive LCP with the debrief in mind, and I'll hit those points of difference in the debrief and how you can utilize that, how you can utilize the interactive report and the important pieces around the debrief. Before I do that, let me just remind everybody that the debrief is only a mechanism and a vehicle and a way to talk about really important things in your client's life and the challenges that they're facing now and the requirements that they feel are being placed upon them or that they are feeling called to and moved into, and that you are there as a co-explorer with them and a witnesser of their current reality, their past, present, and future desires, and a vehicle to help them get some clarity about what all that means for them right now. And in order to do that, your very first thing before you enter a debrief is to get yourself tuned up. You know this. I'm just reminding you that your very presence is the most important thing to prepare for. How you move into the debrief, how you walk into the debrief, how you enter Zoom in the debrief is a game changer. If you're frazzled and worried about the prep and you're kind of worried about not being able to explain everything, then you're not really present for your client. So it's getting that higher tuned up attunement with the universe, as it were, grounded in all the chakras, you know, kind of lined up. The third eye and third ear opened up so that your intuition is available. Your presence is deep and calming and true and present. And so that all of your gifts can be accessed as you work through their complexity. That's number one. Now I'm going to go to the debrief sheet.
Hey, Cindy.
Yeah.
Ross Martin would like you to explain what interactive means before you begin.
Yeah, perfect. So the LCP, as we have known it heretofore, has been a static report. You print it out and it is what it is in terms of it's a printed static report. The interactive LCP is a digital HTML report that allows you to click on things and they pop up and navigate in an entirely different, more interactive way. And we're going to get better and better at this as other technologies develop and as we do a phase 2, phase 3. This is our very first interactive report, and we are super excited about it. So you'll find out more about that in a second. Is that enough for now? Yeah? Okay. All right. Does everybody see the debrief sheet? Okay. You will notice that this debrief sheet, as opposed to the other one, if you remember it, starts with a 0. It starts with a 0 because we've offered this pre-debrief, kind of want to get aligned around what do you do pre-debrief in terms of your client. We invite you to send the report before you have the debrief now as an option. Many of you have been doing this since COVID or before. We want to make sure you know it's a very legitimate way to do a debrief. And in fact, the interactive report opens up areas that make it even better for you to send it beforehand because they can watch a video or two. And for reflective thinkers, it allows them some time to review the orientation, review a couple of videos that you can point out in an email that you talk to them about if you do that option, and perhaps review their comments so that they come into the session having percolated on at least a couple of things. So that's changed. And I will walk you through the pieces in the report in a moment. I just want to note the changes in the actual debrief sheet. Build rapport, essentially the same. Agenda, essentially the same. Context, essentially the same. Learning journey, essentially the same. Where we change is in the brief orientation, the model step 5. We designed the interactive LCP with the debrief in mind. So you should notice that it is truly coach friendly for debriefing. And it does follow the way we usually debrief. So not much has changed in the overall debrief, only a couple of things. So there are some changes in just a brief orientation, not as big an orientation as you did before, straight to comments that you've done before, and then a bigger piece here on graphs and summary results. And I'll show you that in a moment. You'll see it in a second, where you do a little more orientation and then open for actual client beginning exploration of the graph. And then moving on to the rest of the report as needed and as important for them to get the insight and the life-changing, we hope, in some ways, kind of a transformational moment of aha. The last piece we've added also is the deepening awareness, which you had before. Here's what's different about the whole thing. You're going to love this, I think. Let's say I have a question about the leadership journey. You see the question right there on that sheet? Circling around it. Now watch what happens when I click on it. It takes me straight to leadership journey, step 4. And now you have a bunch of language to wrap around that section. And that's for every single section. So if you want to say, well, what should I do in my pre-debrief? Here's some ideas around sending the debrief ahead of time, why you may not want to send it ahead of time, and some things to prepare around. Let's look at leadership journey, because this is an area where sometimes people get nervous and they're not quite sure how to do it. Now you have some language to use. And I want to read like this part here that we've created as a way and as a frame for you to use and always come back to, or you may have your own language that you already love. That's great. This gives you a way to refresh if you haven't had a debrief in a while, to always go back to these pieces. So you know the leadership journey is critical, really, in the debrief. And it is what starts to build the threads for what has shaped me as a leader and helped me come to this place and time that I am right now. And if we don't spend that time, we really miss the threads and the opportunity to have it be a heart and mind session instead of just a mind and a data session. So remember the leadership journey, it's critical. And here's some language. So it says, moving into your leadership journey, key moments will help me understand a little about what is important to you and your leadership. In this portion, I'm going to ask you about 3 different time frames from your life, particularly what may have been shaping or defining event. You may not have thought much about this in a while, so it's good for us to just spend a few moments on highlighting a few important things. And I might add, we're just going to spend 15 minutes here or so. One way to think about your leadership journey is the way you might think about a wardrobe. As you build a wardrobe, you may first look to what your parent or guardian chose for you. Then you may add a style that is not really them at all. And before long, your closet is simply the things you wear, like the blouse or the shirt that you chose today. You choose what you wore today from your wardrobe in your closet. What you're wearing has everything to do with what's in your closet. So too, your leadership examples and your leadership is no different. You choose your leadership style from the experiences in your leadership wardrobe. And then you just lay out those 3 questions and guide them through that and hold that space for them to walk through those pivotal and shaping moments, as you all know. And just stop here for a second. What are you noticing about the debrief that you have questions about in terms of the steps I walk through, or the way we've enhanced the debrief so you can click on each question or the sheet. Great, love the debrief notes. Really happy to hear that. Oh, good, yeah. Love the metaphor. Yeah, we're just giving you some scripts and tips along the way to make it easier for you to feel confident and be successful. How do I get the sheet and how can I use it? Crystal will pop in the link in chat in the session for that. And it is an LC Go under Deliver. So when you go under Delivery Resources, it's right there. There we go. All yours. All right. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to go to the ILCP. This is so cool, everybody. All right. When you go into Project Center, you will have a place that says View Interactive Profile. As a coach, you'll get that link and be sent an email with that link that you can utilize. And you also can send your client the link. It is particularly theirs. So when you send them the link, it isn't as if the report just shows up. It doesn't. They go into Project Center with their email and with their password, and then it shows up. So it's specifically identified to them, and as a coach, you have access to it. You can go in Project Center anytime and view it. You can also download a PDF of the report. You can download an interpretation manual, and you can just go to your results. So that's first and foremost. What's in Project Center right now is a download PDF. You can also download a coach report, the one-pager. That was going to go away. We thought maybe we weren't going to need the coach report, and based on feedback, we're keeping the coach report in Project Center so you can download that as well. Now, here's what's fun. You'll notice that it's got a little welcome email. It gives your client a quick little piece that's addressed to them. It talks about the circular graph and why it's circular. And this is the very belief that we want it to symbolize wholeness and even, eternal nature and divine nature of each of us, that we are whole just the way we are, and that we're complex and beautifully made.
Hey, Cindy, sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. Can you make your screen just a little bit bigger? It's hard to see and read.
Is that hard to see? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to see where I do that from Project Center.
The three little dots in the right corner, can you zoom the screen?
Let me see. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Tell me when you guys feel like you got it. How's that feel?
That looks good to me.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Crystal. What would I do without Crystal? I'd die, that's what. Okay, so this is a fun little welcome. Then you'll see the next piece, and this is all one page right here, this two sections. So now you're seeing it in sections. You can view it just like this with your client though. This is where they can watch the leadership profile model. This is for some of you that haven't seen the Betsy Leatherman video or have. This is Betsy doing the orientation to the model. So inviting them in the debrief to say, the section called Leadership Circle Description of the Model, I'd love for you to overview if you have time and can. It includes a video. It includes a welcome. It includes a little description, which is reactive creative, task, relationship, just a note on percentiles and scores, and then it ends with the core tension between safety and purpose. You may say, if you have time to watch safety and purpose, fine. If you don't worry about it, but do watch the orientation video and just look at the orientation a little bit where you can. And I would always invite my client to read their comments and soak them in, give them some time to percolate in them. I might send the report the night before, and I'm doing a debrief maybe, in the afternoon or the morning, just some time to give them some space to think. Now, here's what you'll notice.
Hey, Cindy, it's Gina.
Hi, Gina.
Hey, hi, everyone. So great to see so many of you here. A question just came up. Where are you right now? I made the comment that you're in Project Center looking at an ILCP.
Yep.
Can you just share the difference of just a regular ILCP report and what you're looking at in Project Center so that they have an idea?
Well, the ILCP report is always in Project Center.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're looking at is an actual report, and that's how it's viewed.
Mm-hmm. And you're just looking at it through Project Center right now, which was confusing to some, rather than just pulling up a report itself.
Yeah, so the HTML ILCP is always in Project Center. It doesn't host anywhere else. It's hosted in the Project Center technology. So when you have a link, you'll go to Project Center and you'll have the report and view it there. You will have that link in perpetuity. That link is always that leader's link, and they can utilize that link, and it will be in their surveys, as long as they want it there. And as a coach, you can identify your reports as a coach, but you don't view it outside of Project Center. You can download a PDF right here, and that would give you something to save.
Can I make a comment? It's
Yeah.
Tim here. Yeah, so for me to navigate to this, so I've used it a couple of times. I go to Project Center, I choose a project, it comes up and says this is closed. Good, I know it is. Then I have to click on the right-hand side to show orders. It shows the order, then I have to click on the order number, and then it brings up the screen saying, do you want to go to the interactive model? So there's a few steps, unless I've missed something. Is that right?
I'm not the operations person. I don't know if we have an operations person on, Tim. That's not my area of expertise in terms of navigating it exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help people if they're going to try and find it. That's the only, there's a number of clicks to get to it, which I felt was a little bit heavy, but if there's an easier way, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I tried to find it and I couldn't. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim.
But Tim's in that that you have to click through the Project Center, go to your orders, and then you'll see an opportunity to open the participants' reports.
It is your order.
Yeah, this is Jerry. I can tell you briefly how that works.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's exactly how you did it before. I think a good distinction to make is that the interactive report is a display only, basically. So it's not something that you can, like you typically did, you would go to Project Center, you'd click on the order number to get into the project you want to work within, and then you would find, get the report and download it and send the actual physical report to somebody. In this instance, it's the same situation. You go to the order, you click on down, go to the how to get to the report, and then you send a link so that when that person logs in, they're logging in and they're viewing it as a display. They don't have that copy with the email.
Yeah,
so,
this is a different world. We are in a link age, and you know, their report is their report forever, but they view it in our technology. The PDF they can download to their computer if they want. And so they always can have the PDF version, which is not interactive, but a static report in the same format.
Yeah, quick question. When I release that to the participant, what do they see and what do they get? How does it, how do they know and what do they have to do to get their report? I can find out how to get to all this. I just don't know what they're going to receive when I release that to them.
They're going to get an email from you with a link to their report.
If I do it as in bulk or individually, if I have 10 people, I do it too, and I release it all to them. They each are going to get an email from me with that.
Each link is specific to that individual. So you would send a link to the individual you want to have their report. If you have multiple, they will all receive a link that's unique and specific to them. When they click on it, they'll see exactly what you're seeing. They'll see a display, an interactive display of their report that allows them to click and move and read more. So that's how it differs from having an e-copy report that you can print out that just gives you basic words and things, doesn't allow you that interactivity to click and deeper dive into what something might mean. So they click.
You know what, like, yes, thank you, Jerry. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead and finish your
Oh,
sentence.
I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know what I think we should do is I appreciate these operational questions a lot, and I know they're important, but if we stay here, we won't get to the debrief and the other portions because we've only got 30 minutes left already, I think. Is that true, Crystal?
That's true. I've also posted the how to access and share the interactive report link in the chat. So that may
Perfect.
help answer some of those operational questions you have.
Perfect. And you can always
Thank
follow
you.
up with customer service on those issues. And we are enhancing this as we go, as we get feedback that is a pattern. We're working in an agile way and trying to make it more user-friendly as we go. So get used to that as part of what we do when we find out things are a little too difficult. So again, let's just kind of talk about what you might do at the beginning of debrief. Make sure they got their link, give them a quick, welcome to the report, and you just want to highlight a couple things. Perhaps you're going to highlight that on this side, you'll see the model, the inner circle and the outer circle, and how this instrument is organized in a way that helps you understand your results in a clear fashion. And you're going to walk through some of those things. You may ask them if they viewed the video and if they haven't, that's fine. Tell them they can watch that later. What you're really going to hit here is the first place you're going to go to after the leadership journey is probably right here, which is, let's just do a really quick orientation. And that orientation is this: reactive, creative. So the leadership circle model it breaks into 2 half circles. Let's talk about the top half and the bottom half. Creative competencies are those things that are highly correlated to leadership effectiveness. They tend to be more scalable and sustainable. They tend to be unleashing of energy. They bring better results for you and more fulfillment, usually. Reactive tendencies, are those tendencies which got us to where we are, which tend to be not as correlated to leadership effectiveness and can limit us or bring some cost to self or others. They aren't bad. They're strategies that we use and beliefs that we have around what brings success. So we'll talk about that and open that up. So you're going to hit top half, bottom half, right, left, relationship, task, and then say the next piece I want you to know about the model is the percentiles and the scores. So the results that you see are organized in percentiles in the graph. They're based on scores given from 1 to 5. And when you see your results, if you've looked at them, you'll see a line that has a self score and a shading that shows the percentile score. That's it for brief orientation before you go straight into comments. Now you'll see here that comments go from side to side. So when you've done your preparation, you may have looked through every comment, and now you've heard their leadership journey, and one really kind of stands out to you maybe, and maybe you have it up, or maybe you ask them what they noticed and how they received their comments. And give some time to go one by one, kind of soak through those if they haven't read their comments. And if they have, which ones stuck out to them. I love it when I can help a leader see their strengths more, just a few minutes. Like this one, comment A, doesn't just say ability to build relationships. It says exceptional ability to build strong relationships. That's an amazing comment from somebody. So it's highlighting a differentiator, and kind of note how they frame up comments and what they dismiss about comments and don't soak in, and what they do soak in, and help them to be able to see themselves. So that's a great way to do a debrief through this interactive approach, and pick one or two that may highlight something. It's also possible that you may start to notice, themes from their leadership journey that you say, that sounds a little bit like when you're talking about X or Y. So that's the comment section. Now, the next part that's different about the orientation is the first time they see their results, they see it in inner circle fashion. So go back to the debrief process here. Let's see where to go. I'm going to go back here. Yeah. So here you've gone through leadership journey, that very brief orientation of the model, comments, and now we're to graph and summary results. Graph and summary results are first the inner circle and then the full outer circle, some orientation around the summary bars, and then some exploration around what they're noticing and what they're seeing. So I got to go back to the interactive report. Hang on. This is the first graph they see. Centering them in the middle, explain to them what you're seeing now is the inner circle of your summary of your results. Those are the summary dimensions of that bigger circle that has the leadership competencies and the reactive tendencies spelled out one by one. You'll remember that we talked about top half and bottom half, reactive and creative. And that creative leadership competencies are those things that tend to be most highly correlated to leadership effectiveness and performance, tend to be more unleashing of energy. You'll note here that you have the top line, the dark green line in the shading, right? So that's just the little orientation that you're doing. Let me remind you a little bit about percentiles. So here, the percentile, when you show this shading and relating at 85 percentile, means that that's compared to our database, our normative global database. And you're scoring at the 85th percentile, ranked there in our normative database, which is showing that only 15 percentile are scoring above you in that category. You might use an example. Mine is, let me put percentiles in perspective for you. Like, why does that matter on a scale of 1 to 5? My son had a really big head, large head. I didn't know that he had a large head when he was born, although I should have. They told me he was in the 98th percentile for babies born in terms of head size. Well, heck, only 2 percentile are bigger than that child's head. No wonder that labor was so hard, 1. 2, I was going to need bigger size caps for that boy all of his life. Even starting as a small, 7-pounder, he was going to need, that 12-month cap. So it puts it in perspective. He was perfect in every way to me. But it wasn't until you get it in the percentile where you start to see a differentiator or something different that is not quite average that's going on. That's what helps you in percentiles. That's why we score it that way. So you might ask us after you do that quick orientation, what do you notice and what do you see? And just help them get their grounding. Well, I see that I've got a really a lot of creative competencies going on. I love what I see in relating self-awareness, systems awareness. You might say, why do you love that? And, drill down on one of those things. What else do you notice? I see that I have some gaps, or that if my self-score isn't aligned in achieving and complying. Oh, good noticing. Yeah, that is true. Just a quick piece to get them grounded in their summary scores, and then you go to the full graph. There you'll explain the outer dimensions of the graph specifically, like we do in every orientation. You'll help them see their inner graph to the outer graph. And then ask them what they're noticing. Yeah, let's stop the share and get some questions.
Yeah, sorry, it's Tim again. I think it'd be useful to mention for example, the inner circle. You can click on some of those categories to pull up the definition. I think that's one of the real values.
Yeah, so in the interactive, I'm so glad you brought that up. You can click on the outer graph or the inner graph or anywhere you are. Well, I have a question about what achieving is. This will give you the extent to which you offer visionary, authentic, and high achievement leadership.
Can you just show how that's done?
Yeah.
That was my question was.
Show what?
Just show how you do that.
You put your you point your cursor there, and then you
left.
Can you share? Can you share
your
screen?
Screen. Yeah, it's not on your screen.
It's not on my screen.
No,
Oh,
no.
I'm not sharing screen.
You're not sharing.
Yeah, I went off share for a second, and then you asked me something, and I forgot I went off share. Okay, here you go, guys. Sorry. So achieving there. See my cursor right there? I'm left clicking. Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can do that with any one of them. You can do that even with the outer dimensions.
Oh, fabulous. That is so great.
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that great?
nice.
Yeah, you don't have to carry another sheet with you and the booklet and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you click on the learn more? Because when I click on the learn more, it doesn't work.
Oh, right here, like learn more. That will take you to the interactive manual. Right where you are, you'll go to the interactive manual, and we clicked on community concern, and that takes me right there.
I guess I got to talk to tech because mine's not working. Thank you.
If you have difficulty with things not working, it may be a browser issue. You may need to update your browser. We do try, update as much as we possibly can, but we do notice that sometimes if somebody's using an older version of Firefox, for example, they're not having as much luck as if they were to use Chrome. So it could be, if you're having that difficulty, it's likely a browser issue.
Yeah, and check which way you're clicking. Sometimes you might not be clicking on the left or, the way you need to. But, you know, you can do that for anyone and learn more. So you don't have to have your interpretation manual and flip to that. It's all right here. You can do that in the outer graph. You can do that in the inner graph. You can do that along the way. Now, here's the cool thing about when you're debriefing this. So they've got their basic orientation. You may kind of explain the 18th creative leadership competencies and the 11 reactive tendencies, normalize those. We all have them. They're in us. They develop as, you know, footprints when we're a child. I notice, you know, that you've certainly grown into a lot of creative competencies. What do you notice? Where do your eyes fall? And they may go, well, I see a lot of passive, you know, they may go right there. And then just, you know, then you're in the debrief, as you know. And then you're in the debrief around how passive is operating in their work life right now, maybe tying in some of their leadership journey around where passive served them, what's the cost of passive at this point in their life, what other things can't be expressed because passive is a filter through which you've got and then get into the basic dynamic between complying and achieving, and how there might be a gap there because you don't recognize yet or haven't been able to put together yet that passive is directly correlated to lower achievement. Well, that builds another case for them looking at it a little further and a little differently. So you may be there, but you also want to recognize and stay with that we haven't even talked about the summary bars yet. So this is where the dance is. Of course, as you know, you're going to orient them to the broader circle. You're going to ask them what they notice. You're going to pinpoint some of the things you can click on. You make it into a little dynamics and unlayering, and you may want to, there may be an opportunity at a certain point where they kind of talk about the achieving and relating and what's that. And so you go to that balance score in this situation, perhaps. And the way that you do that is right underneath. So in this situation, I might go right to that page that scrolls left to right again and say, well, let's look at the task relationship balance. Oh dear. There we go. This gives you the complete description, and it tells you where they scored their self-score and where their evaluators scored. Well, there's a conversation. It shows it exactly the same up here. You can see the gap, but here you've got the full description, and it's kind of along a scale, which is kind of fun. It's not new data, you guys. You can stay right with the graph right here and explain like you always have and tell them that there are descriptions down below. Or you can use the descriptions below if there's a need to really drill down on it and explain some things. Like, for sure, how cool is this? That, well, let's look at leadership effectiveness. And here are the 5 questions that are outside the graph that correlate directly to higher creative scores. I love this personally because I'm constantly having to remember what are the 5 questions. I can usually get 4 out of 5, and then I'm like, what is that 5th question? So here it is right for you, and a great conversation.
Hey, Cindy, there's been quite a few questions about a demo of the ILCP report that the practitioners could jump in and check out. Do you want to address that question real quick?
Yeah, you may be able to even more than I do. We've been really, really wanting to get a demo report out to everyone. That's a sample public report. It has been more difficult than we realized. We're new at HTML. This is a new product. I've been told it's going to be ready within a couple of weeks. And I really think that is very reasonable and true. So within the next week or two, let's say two, we'll be announcing that, you know, that sample report's available for you to play with and scroll through and have as a demo. If you need one for a client to review in the meantime, we can get somebody from sales or business development or, you know, somebody to kind of help. If you think that's going to be a game changer in the next 2 weeks and we don't have the report, we can make sure to get you somebody that can have access and give you a, you know, a way to do that. So don't let it, you know, deter you. We will
No, give me
absolutely
about
wanna
another
help you
half
be
hour. Well,
successful.
it's almost over, honey.
Okay. Let me show you something else that's a part of the graphs. This is also really cool. I want to remind you though, on the debrief, you're just always centering back to the graph. You know how we used to hold the graph up, period, like we had the graph and the report, you'd click between. Always center back to the graph. So inner circle, outer circle, have a question about leadership effectiveness. Great. Let's go to that and then back to the circle. Look at the overall, make sure that you're doing.
Can you share your screen again?
That is important. Yes, thank you so much. So inner circle, outer circle, that's where we hold here on the outer circle. Maybe I'm going to look at leadership effectiveness, not right now. And maybe I'm going to look at task balance right now. And maybe I'm not going to hit the other two right now. But then I go back to the circle because they can look at those later and we can do them in the second session. You really want to make sure what you're working through, what's calling them, what behaviors and assumptions they really want to unpack and get uber clear on. So you're always going back to the graph. Now, another place that you can use in the debrief that is super cool is, let's say they're like, well, man, tell me, I see my complying. I do, I see it. And it looks like others aren't seeing it as much, which would be because there's only one real area, one real wing of complying that's showing up. And that's helping me understand my, you know, maybe why I'm lower in achieving, but I'm just so curious about, because I have this thing going on with my boss. And you say, yeah, let's look at that. So your boss's boss shows like that. Let's look at your direct reports. Very different. So interesting that the boss is seeing one way, the peers are seeing another way, and the directs are seeing another way. So how am I leading up? How am I leading cross? How am I leading down? It looks like this leader is leading direct reports where you know, they have kind of a direct line in a very scalable, unleashing, fulfilling way. The boss, however, is seeing that leader differently. Now talk to me about how passive might be showing up or complying, and another dynamic that we could talk about. Let's go back here and let's talk about what the boss might be seeing. What do you think they're seeing? Or what are they expecting that might be different from you? And it always will lead you in this report back to courageous authenticity. I'm probably not being as courageously authentic with my directs as I am my boss, perhaps, might be a conversation. So that's why you're going back to the graph, you're doing breakout graphs. And that's really cool in the interactive report.
Cindy, a quick question. Is it pretty typical that people will show up very differently with different groups? And you know, and could you say a little bit more about that? That was very interesting example you gave.
You know, you've always had this information in the report through the breakout sorts. This just helps them see it visually. I would say that there can be typically a group. Sometimes it's peers. Peers tend to be hard on each other. Or sometimes it's directs, and sometimes it's boss that has seen things a little differently. That can be very eye-opening because they know how to lead in one way. Let's say with a boss, they lead up really well, but they use a different style when leading direct reports or vice versa. And so that's just a really great conversation because they know a little bit about how to be effective in one area. Let's use that effectiveness in one area and take it over to another area and look at what's happening in that context that's making your leadership show up differently.
Yes, they could almost borrow from one area that they're strong in and take a look at this. I can transition some of my skills and my strengths to another area. That's a nice way of explaining that.
Good. I'm glad that helped. And sometimes they can be, there's no difference. And so if there's no difference, you're not going to show the breakout graphs. You're not going to spend time on the interactive breakout graphs. Stay with the graph and then go to questions they have about things like, you can skip past this section. In fact, you could go, each one of these you can click on. You can
You're not sharing your screen, Cindy.
I always do that. You guys, I got to stop that. My gosh. Okay. So see the table of contents, you might go to, report summary or those graphs. You might say, you know what, let's just go straight to some of the sort tables. And here they are, just as you always saw them before. But in this report, it gets really specific about how you can use it. So if I have a question now about courageous authenticity and I want to understand that better, I can go to self-awareness and I can click on dimension details and it will show me, whoops, wrong thing, authenticity, sorry. Now I'm going to break it all out for you. You can go to dimension details in any one of these. So it shows you authenticity. You can call that out and then you can go to questions around courageous authenticity. I speak directly even on controversial issues, and I might add with my boss if they're not quite seeing the ways in which they might be being passive in that situation. I am courageous in meetings with my boss.
So good.
And then you can, so this way you can focus on the key areas and build out just the key areas that they might want to drill down on, like in this case, perhaps passive. They look at the questions, look at the breakouts, go back and then go right on back to your graph for further explanation. Okay.
All right, Cindy, looks like we've got about 3 minutes. There was a couple questions, and I think this is an important one to address. How does debriefing the interactive LCP report differ from a virtual debrief versus a face-to-face debrief?
Yeah, I have not done a face-to-face debrief yet. Here's what I have heard, that in a face-to-face debrief, it's helpful if you have a bigger screen so that two people can view it when you're looking at it together. And that you may want to also have the PDF just in case, which I think is a great idea. The PDF just isn't interactive and it has more pages because you have more things to show. Like the 6 breakouts are all in one page in the PDF. They're both seriously great vehicles and useful. So perhaps a bigger screen in the face-to-face. If you're in a room with a TV screen, fantastic, works so well. Or a monitor that's bigger. In terms of virtual, there is zero difference for me. It's just kind of knowing the navigation. Where I always just held the graph up, I'm now just navigating in the report, going back to the graph, opening up questions, going back to the graph, getting in a summary of something they have a question about, going back to the graph, going to the sorts as it's going to help them unpack awareness and insight. Don't let all the bells and whistles distract you from the main event. The main event is them and them understanding their results and the awareness that will come from the things that are up for them right now that may have even come from formative years that are getting in the way of where they now need to go or want to go. Those are the big things in a debrief. And then an awareness exercise around that. And then you're off to the second coaching session where you can use more bells and whistles and come back to the report. Okay, that was a quick 75 minutes for me, I have to say. I loved being with you. Thank you so much for being here. Please give us feedback about how it goes. If there are things that get in your way, let us know. If there are things you love, we're thrilled about that. I have heard from everyone, and I've only done a couple of interactive LCP debriefs myself, that it has been so much more dynamic and a great experience. I've heard of no downside yet, but that doesn't mean there might not be. And I've had really great experiences. Clients love this report because it's a learning tool for them. They can use it, they can read it, they can integrate, they can go to the interactive report, they can be investigators in their own results by having all of it there for them. So let us know what you think and thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be sending out the recording to this webinar later this week, and I'll include all of the links that we attached into chat today, and we will address the questions that were not answered here. Thanks for joining, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.